This is, top 3 of like the most proud I am of anything I've ever done. And I'm so excited of how it turned out, the way the team came together. Like, I mean, it also clearly won for the VA right now. I think it's the most viewed video of all time for the VA. All this stuff. We're closing in, I think, on 40 million collective views on just 3 videos. And it's just like, it's everything that I want as a viewer for messaging coming at me as a veteran. But to be able to do it and do it with the team that we did it with, I'm so proud of it.
That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
Episode 171 features the return of my friend Ryan Curtis, independent film and commercial director, who recently directed Keep It Secure, a joint commercial PSA campaign between the Department of War and the VA.
Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right. Good evening from the great state of Ohio for me. Good afternoon from the great state of California. Ryan Curtis, welcome back to Veteran Made. Oh no, did I lose you? Right when we're going.
You just froze. Sorry.
No, you're good. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll start over. All right. Good evening from the great state of Ohio for me. Good afternoon from the great state of California. Ryan Curtis, welcome back to Veteran Made.
Dude, thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. It is witching hour here. I've got kids and dogs and neighbors and dinner going and all of that good stuff. So it is actually nice to come upstairs and shut the door and have a conversation with a friend.
Nice.
Cool. So, I mean, last time you were here, which was just like a couple of months ago, I think it was before the holidays, right around the holidays, we chatted your film, Hollywood Grit. And then now I want to chat a little bit about this campaign that you directed for the VA, the PSA, Keep It Secure. But update us on Hollywood Grit. How did everything finish up for you guys with your run and release? And now that you're kind of like off the press tour, how did everything wrap up for you?
Yeah, man, it was so exciting to have like that moment for me as a filmmaker specifically, like because we released, I think, in 38 cities around the country in theaters, and we did 1 week in theaters, which is pretty good for a small little indie film for us and with that amount of cities. And so really excited about the response from people. It's hard for us to to really get the word out there to that many cities and people because our marketing budget was, tiny compared to like studio films and stuff like that. So it was mostly word of mouth and social things. And we pushed for that week and like our score, we got a really great audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know what it is now, but at one point it was like 93, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I try not to look at that stuff because it's just, it is what it is, a filmmaker. But yeah, no, it was really just awesome. I personally did a little mini tour. I did a premiere here in LA, and then I did a premiere in Austin, and I did a premiere in Birmingham, Alabama, and Boston, Massachusetts, and just had like different people kind of come out and do the thing. And, that's exactly everything you want as a filmmaker is to show the piece in theaters and have that experience. You know, from there, now we're doing foreign sales. So we have the movie out with our foreign sales agent. They're in Berlin right now, doing the sales right now, and we're not sure what the next steps are going to be as far as where we're going to land as far as like a premium like streamer or whatever that is. So right now we're on demand for you can rent or purchase on Apple or Amazon. And then, you know, he'll probably this year or next year. It's such a slow process, and that's the biggest thing I'm learning is that, you know, as this is my first one. Unless you have a big studio behind you that's really rushing this, like all of these little steps just take forever, which is like getting it into theaters, and then from theaters getting it onto the different streamers or airlines or, you know, the sales territories around the world. So that's been a big process, and it's going to take, you know, they're telling us it lasts for about 4 to 10 years for the whole cycle to kind of really wrap up. So we're, you know, just a few months past our theatrical. And so we're trying to be patient and live the life and then get ready for the next one.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, yeah, for those that can go check it out on Apple and Amazon right now. It's cool for indie films like yours to come out on a streamer like in a couple of years, right? Like it's kind of I come across these obviously I'm a filmmaker, my wife is a filmmaker, so we're constantly looking, you know, at all of the streaming platforms that we subscribe to. And then like something will come up and we'll be like, oh man, that looks interesting. Holy shit. This was released in 2022, you know, and it's 2026. And it's like we find a great gem of a film and end up watching it. So, yeah, it's got to be interesting for you. You spend a couple years making it, and then you sprint through post, and then you sprint through PR, and then other people are doing sales on your behalf, or you move on to other projects, and then it maybe comes out, you know, later on a streamer a couple years later. It's an interesting life cycle. That, I mean, when you and I were growing up in the industry or coming up wanting to be filmmakers, like, streamers weren't really a thing. I mean, I remember when I remember subscribing to Netflix and getting DVDs in the mail and returning them and then getting the next one and then doing it. And now here we are. I've got 17.
And before that, going to Blockbuster.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like, and do that thing. So that whole like market just disappeared. You know, like, in what, you know, I was watching something that Quentin Tarantino was talking about, how that, you know, there are two kind of peaks to filmmaking in, you know, the throughout history at this point. And he says the 70s was a peak of filmmaking, and then the 90s was a peak of filmmaking. Yeah. And we actually look back at the 90s, you had, the reason it was a peak was, one, you had just some of these most talented young upcoming directors at the time, Tarantino and Fincher and just, you know, a whole bunch of other guys down there. And then, but they had these huge budgets because they could do a movie for theatrical, but you also have a giant DVD revenue stream. And so that doesn't exist anymore. And so for us, for indie filmmakers like me right now, is like, it's trying to get something made. And then the even bigger hurdle is trying to get people to be able to see it. And because the streamers right now, they don't really just purchase small indie films. The cast that I have in my movie is really great, but it's not a big enough name cast to like attract big sales across the board. And so what most likely is going to happen is we're going to end up on a streamer with a package of other movies in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, you know, and then we go there, and then what we hope and what I'm really crossing fingers is that's where we find our life, and we catch a little wind in our sails, and people really start to see it then. Yeah.
It's funny. Like my daughter's just turned 6, and we went through the entire MCU, like up through Endgame with her. We had like a crazy snow week here in the Midwest a few weeks ago. So she was out of school, and we were like reading books. And
pelted, right?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Ended up being like super fun though, because we would just stay up and watch, you know, a couple Marvel movies a night or whatever. We ended up getting through Endgame the other night, and I told her, I was like, you know, like, not only do you not have to wait for these movies to come out in theaters like we did as adults watching these Marvel movies, but like when I was a kid, like we would go to the theater and then try to go see a movie. And if it was sold out, we would just see what else is playing and then go see that. And then we would go to Blockbuster, and she's like, what's Blockbuster? And I'm like, well, it's a place where you go rent movies and you put them into a VCR or into a DVD player. And she's like, what's that? And so I'm kind of on this kick now. I showed you right before we started recording that I got the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo like systems. And I'm on this like physical media kick right now where I'm just going to start collecting these things for my kids. Like same thing with trade paperback. I don't know if you're like, if you read a lot of books, but like I read a ton of novels. My wife reads a ton of novels. Like mass market paperbacks are going away. And I saw an interview with Stephen King with the New York Times, I think, or one of those where he was like, when I sold the rights to the mass market paperback to whichever one of those novels it was, like that is what paid our bills and made it so that I could write full time. Like, yes, getting a hardcover out and being a New York Times bestseller is super cool, but these old revenue models for these old types of media, to include movies and television and books, it was not something that any of our kids understand. And it's something that I miss. And so I want to have some nostalgia and sort of a vintage play to hang on to these things and hold on to these things. But also as an operator and as a filmmaker and as a business person now, I want to figure out like, okay, well, how do we move forward and understand that streamers are a thing and this new distribution model is a thing. And so it's a weird, super fun time to be alive and to be working in the industry, to say, I missed that, but I'm not going to hold on to it too much because we have to move forward.
Yeah, I actually think that we've reached a point, or will be reaching a point very soon, that the digital experience is so integrated and it's saturated with the AIs and the socials, and literally everything kind of lives online, that these physical things, like you're collecting these books and the old physical games and consoles and experiences, live in-person experiences, are going to come back into the zeitgeist and become more of a premium again, because people are going to yearn for real experiences. And I think that we're almost there, and with what's happening with AI, but like I see this very kind of clearly coming up as it unfolds over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I just look at it as like a wave. I'm just going to ride it. You know what I mean? Like you can try to do what, like, machinate it, but I was like, I'm just going to ride this wave. I'm just going to, I don't know. It's fun. But yeah, so I mean, I think aside of filmmaking that people don't understand is like working filmmakers, independent filmmakers, directors, producers, writers like yourself, and like me, my wife, other people, like we do other things, right? Like I remember when I went to film school, used the GI Bill and went to film school, I had no idea. I knew what commercials were, right? I knew what advertising was, but I didn't actually understand that the people that worked in the film industry also worked in advertising, right? Those are the same people that were making the commercials. I know that now, you know, Ridley Scott, Zack Snyder, and all these guys that made all these commercials that we remember seeing when we were younger. And so I remember finding advertising and being like, oh man, this is cool. I can do this every day, right? This is something, a way that I can get into the industry and do my work every day, instead of just grinding, trying to make short film after short film to then make a feature to keep doing that. Where did that start for you? How did you find yourself into the advertising kind of commercial filmmaking side of things?
Yeah, when I kind of moved to LA and I was figuring out exactly what I wanted to do, because I moved here originally to be a screenwriter, at least that's what I thought I wanted to be. And mind you, I did that without knowing anything about screenwriting. I was like, ooh, I like telling stories, right? But that I didn't have any formal training. I've never written a script really, other than anything. And so when I got here, I quickly realized that screenwriting is, you know, very, very difficult, one of the most difficult things in the world. And it's something you have to work at consistently to get to a point where you actually be employed as one. And so as I was I would write, and then I would also be a PA on set, and I was learning about, you know, just the jobs, all the different jobs on set. And then I kind of got different jobs on set. You know, as that was happening, I was like, oh, directing is kind of the thing. If you are the storyteller, you're able to bring all of those pieces in a thing. And when I got out here, I worked in TV and I worked in commercials and all these different things. So I got to see different, you know, landscapes. And I early on had I was like, oh, I could do the commercial thing. And I don't know what it about me, but I was like, I want to figure out how to do that. So I started writing spec commercials, and then I'd save up money from work, and then I'd go shoot spec commercials so that I could get good enough that I would use those as pieces to book me as a commercial director. And so that's how it happened. I started directing little things, and here and there, and like little shorts and then little like other different things. And then eventually I like collected enough money that I dumped into a couple spec commercials that actually started to get me work.
How did you go about choosing, I mean, for those that don't know what a spec is, just like tell us what a spec commercial is, and how did you go about choosing verticals or brands to say like, hey, these are the kinds of commercials that I want to make, so I'm going to choose these brands to make these spec commercials about in order to get into that vertical? Like how intentional were you thinking about it at the time, as I'm sure you were learning from directors you were working with and for on these other sets?
Yeah, so like for me, as well, first off, a spec commercial is basically just a commercial that you write and you pay for, and you do it all of yourself so that you can have a piece of portfolio work that you can show to someone and say, hey, look, hire me as a director. And so I did that. I did those, a handful of those, and it took me a few of those before I actually started getting work. And from the way that I chose the things I did is I was like, well, what is interesting to me? What kind of stuff do I want to do? And to me, like, I always loved the old Nike, commercials and things like that. And I was like, ooh, those are the types of things that I'd want to do. I was like, but I probably can't do Nike. So I'll do some specs I did things for like Adidas and Under Armour and some other things to be like, okay, this is what I could do in this world. And then I also would do, got a lot of like different small things that I'd be like, oh, let me try this or let me try that. And just started to kind of hone the way I do things. And then those pieces started to like get me more work. And then the other thing in being real is the fact that I'm a veteran. And so I got connected with a handful of veteran production companies like you and some other things out here, and was like, hey, look at my specs, look what I can do. If you guys have anything, I'd love to do something for you. And so early on, I got connected with like We Are the Mighty and those guys like that. And so I would start filming and shooting commercials and things for them. And that started just to kind of build and slowly build. So it's been an up and down journey on the commercial side, because there's just there's times when, it's just happening all the time. And then there's times where a year goes by and I don't even get a commercial. So, but it's a weird thing. And especially right now in the state of this business, because there's such a contraction happening in entertainment, where guys like me, who I used to like kind of live off lower budget commercials, right? So like or low to medium budget commercials where, it'd be like $150,000 a day shoot budget, or, even $70,000, something like that. And go out and I'd make that look way bigger than it is. And that's kind of why I would get hired. Well, what's happening now is that as I've kind of progressed in my career, I've kind of like graduated out of those little smaller commercials. And what I'm noticing is a lot of like influencer YouTube folks, all these things are getting these smaller, lower budget stuff now, instead of like just filmmakers. They're just like going straight to influencers and be like, you guys do it. And then, so that kind of pushes that bottom thing away from me personally. And then as I've done like a movie and done these other things, with the contraction of the business, all these other huge, big time commercial directors and big time filmmakers that would normally just take the high end A+ things, they're going, there's not as much anymore. So we're going to come down and take these ones that you normally would. So now, I'm find myself competing with Michael Bay for a commercial, or things like that. And you're like, dude, there's no way I get these. So it's a really hit or miss world. And I'm not a roster director either. So like I'm not sitting on a roster. Everything I do is freelance. And so it's really great when it's great. And then also it's like, crickets when it goes away.
Yeah, we're in a similar position. Last year we treated on a campaign, and the agency came to us and told us what the brand was, and we put our portfolio forward, and they said, we'd love to have you treat. And as is standard, a production company like ours says, okay, who are we up against, right? Like who else have you are in the triple bid, right? And like Oliver Stone was in the triple bid, and we're like, oh, like the Oliver Stone, like, okay,
yeah,
you're going to choose between us and him. Okay, got it, great,
cool.
And it was like, it's like kind of wild, because I came up in the same type of situation where like branded content was my bread and butter right when I got out of film school. And this kind of convergence, this contraction, like you're talking about, where it's branded content, it's branded entertainment, it's native advertising, it's paid media, it's omni-channel campaigns from TVC all the way down to digital. Right? I've worked at agencies where we handled all of that. I've worked at agencies and production companies where we just did TVC and gave the toolkit over to the brand and they sent it out to, influencers or smaller social production companies. And I've done the opposite. I'm doing the opposite now with a company that I'm consulting with right now, where just met with a brand today. They're like, hey, here's our anthem spot for the year, and here's our brand campaign, and you guys are doing all the social, here for this. And we're having these interesting conversations about like, oh, is this downstream of your brand campaign, or is it a cousin of it, is a sibling of it, all these different things, and you kind of find yourself playing in all of these different sandboxes. It's all filmmaking, but it's not traditionally what we did or necessarily always want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird world right now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun though. I mean, like again, like I said earlier, it's like riding the wave. I'm like, I'm here, I'm in it. I mean, when I was in the military and thinking to myself, I'm going to get out and go to film school and work in the industry, I'm doing that right now. So I'm super happy about it. Like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. When I was over there daydreaming about it, but it's better in some ways because I'm actually doing it. And in other ways, it's like, oh man, I wonder what it would have been like to work in the late 90s and early aughts in this industry, but I can't really think about that too much. Now, so as a freelance director, do you get hired by other production companies a lot? Do you get hired direct to agency? Do you have your own production company that you can bring on and handle an entire, line produce an entire budget? Like, how do you approach it?
Yeah, it's all of the above. So I get hired directly from agency stuff. I get hired by other production companies, and a lot of my work is I get white labeled. So my production company, like someone else I catch an overflow, or someone else wins a bid, and they're like, we don't have the bandwidth to actually run and do this, but we'll white label your company, so it's us doing it, and then you kind of handle all of the production and do all that stuff. So I kind of have the capabilities of doing all of it, and it kind of varies. So I just did a big spot. My last big commercial was for ABC. It was Disney was the agency, and the client was the CMAs, Country Music Awards. And so I did that, I think, the end of last year, and that was a direct, they reached out directly from the agency.
Yeah. The white labeling thing is great. Like, we do that as well, and then we have other people do that for us, right? Like, if it's we have a great post house that we use, and it's like, hey, you white label for us, and it's like, you can put it on your portfolio and say you edited the work and did all the post and finishing and all that, or like vice versa. It's like, hey, I'll white label as long as we can put it on the portfolio and say that we did the work. It's an interesting and fun way. And again, it's like one of those things that I remember the first time I heard that term white label. I'm like, I don't really know what that is, but I'm gonna kind of act like I do in this conversation and figure out what it is from the context of it, right? And then you're like, okay, cool, I got it. That makes sense. And that overflow that you're talking about catching is it's great. And that is, I've talked about this a lot, and I experienced it a lot. Like, I tried to network a lot when I got out of the military and got out of film school and got into the industry. And then I realized it was actually all about building relationships with other people, because you're not going to catch overflow from a network connection. You're going to catch overflow from somebody that you have a relationship with, that you have worked with or that you have worked for, or vice versa. They know how you work. They know how you can fit into their workflow. I'm in conversations right now with another agency like that, where they're like, hey, I think I've got this thing coming up. And it's only because I've got a relationship with that EP. And we talk every, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, just to kind of check in and see what's going on. And it's like, oh, actually, I've got this thing. Will you help me develop this? Because I'm going to need to pass this work off to you, and we're going to have to do it. So how have you how have you built those relationships as you came up working on sets, working for people, doing specs, and then starting to get yourself hired? Like, how did you build your relationships, both with people that you are hiring, that you need, right, to bring on board to produce the work so that you can direct, and then the people that you're getting these calls from in order to go work for?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of my early relationships were built on set, right? And so they were, just the people that are around, and you start to kind of pick out, and you're like, this person's good. Like, and you start to do that, especially as, similar age range, and you're all trying to work together and stuff like that. And so, early on, I'm very loyal. When I find people, I love to continue to work with people over and over again, especially because we just have like a natural working relationship. And I think that's just how it works here in this industry generally. It's really hard to break into a crew that you don't normally work with. So there's good and bad about that. And so that's how I found a lot of early people that, would be willing to do stuff for cheap or free or nothing to like start building stuff. And then, as I kind of kept growing, like people would recommend me to meet people, and then I would just meet people, stuff like that. And so the thing that wasn't good at and haven't been good at is like, I'm not good about meeting new people in agency world. And so like, to me, I've always been freelance and it's been fine. But like what I'm noticing now in this world is like, it doesn't work like it used to. And so like, I noticed now that I'm gonna have to actually start doing this whole reach out again. It's like, how do I meet new EPs and talk to new people and start, kind of like building these relationships again, just because people are leaving the industry. It's so much changed. I don't know as many people as I used to in the industry. And so it kind of feels like it's a little bit of a starting over to try to reach out and build those relationships again.
Do you like that? Is it like invigorating for you? Or is that something that you feel like you have is it like, I mean, obviously you have to do it, right? If you want to like keep working, but is it something that you enjoy, right? Because I mean, I think sometimes like we get to a spot where we're cruising in a career and we're like, oh man, I miss those early days when I was hungry. And now you're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry again.
Yeah. I would say that I actually love meeting new people. It's like, to me, the hard thing is like actually getting through the door, getting the actual the connection. Once I meet new people, I'm great and I love it. I love to be able to build those relationships. I'm a people person, and that's great. That helps me as a director too. But I will say, like, generally, it feels like with the contraction of the business that the rug is being pulled out from underneath me a little bit. And it's like, because, I've worked so hard for 15 years now in LA to like build a business and, have this thing and have these relationships. And it's really scary. Everyone I know isn't working consistently. They're all in panic mode here in Los Angeles. And so it's a very scary time, just quite honestly. And so like, this is the point. It's like, for me, it's like, I never worried about getting jobs or work for 15 years because they would just be consistent coming in. Now I worry about it. Where's this next one coming from? Where is, who am I going to connect with now to try to figure out what's happening? Do I have to get a real job in this future? Like, as to like bridge these moments of not working. And so, it's tough. It's just a strange time. And I'm hoping it's just like a moment in time and we're able to make it through and it comes back again. But there's just been so much change specifically here in LA over the last 5 years with COVID, and then multiple strikes, and all of these massive mergers that are happening. And it's just this giant ripple effect that kind of like blows out over everyone, and specifically crew and creatives here in Los Angeles. And so you have had like a huge attrition rate. People are leaving. A lot of people got fired and left or can't do it anymore. And so all these people that I had worked with before, they're gone. And so now it's like new things. And so, yeah, it's scary. It's a scary time.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, that's why it helps us being in the Midwest. It helps that we've worked at, small agencies on big clients. We have that agency experience. Like my wife and I are talking about it all the time. And it's like, how do we position ourselves in the industry to benefit from, because all those mergers are happening and budgets are shrinking at the same time. Right. And I talk to a lot of big agencies all the time that are like, well, yeah, we acquired this other agency, these other agencies, and then these production companies, but now we can't actually afford to produce the work at these budgets. So that's where a lot of that overflow comes from. They're like, oh, you're in the Midwest. Like, we just got a job last week. My wife went and directed something last week because there's an agency that we know out West who was like, hey, we've got a budget. This needs to shoot in the Midwest. We're in Columbus. It shot in Louisville, which was a 3-hour drive for my wife. And the agency was like, can you crew up there and hit this budget? And we were like, yeah, pretty sure we can. We like crunched the numbers real quick and we looked at it and we're like, yep, we absolutely can hit that budget. We can crew up and we can do it. And we were shooting, a week later.
Wow.
And that happens like more often than and it wasn't a crazy budget, but it was also like pretty great for the middle of February for something that we weren't necessarily
Yeah.
expecting.
Those are great. Like I don't even know what it is, but $30,000. We'll go make this for 30 grand, 50 grand, what 75,000, whatever it is. It's like go. Can you do this? Can you do it quickly? And then you figure out your way to do it. And I think that's a lot of what's going to happen more and more is like the smaller micro budgets, quick turnarounds, need to go out on social, that type of stuff.
I think like it sounds like obviously you and I haven't worked together in this capacity yet. I hope to, soon and often, but like, it sounds like we have a pretty similar approach or had a similar approach early, which is I'll never forget this. I flew to Houston, Texas. It was me, and it was a skeleton crew. It was me, a DP who's phenomenal. I think we had a gaffer and a PA. Like that was it. And we were shooting with a professional athlete. It was for Texaco. It was a branded content piece. It was with an NBA player in Houston. He had just gotten traded to the Rockets. And I remember I was sitting there with the DP. We didn't even really have a pre-pro. It was like, hey, here's your budget. Like, go shoot this thing. And this DP is a British guy. He's awesome. And he was like, so how do you want to do this? And I was like, well, I would like to make this look like it costs 4 times what our budget actually is. So what can we do in camera with your lensing? How well do you know this gaffer? I will lug whatever we need to and work with the PA to do it. And that is sort of how I built my career early, which was taking small budgets, like you were saying, and making it look a lot better than it was, which is great because clients tend to love that. The problem with that then is you tend to get a lot more of those budgets, right? And if you're not stacking them at volume and you're constantly overperforming within small budgets, then you kind of find yourself in this weird place where you're like, I can't get any bigger budgets, but it's because, well, you're crushing the small budgets. And so then it becomes a volume game of like, how do I stack those jobs over and over and over again? But then you can work your crew out, too hard.
I had the exact same thing, and I did it well enough to like continue to get momentum and stay busy for a very long time. But what I actually found is that it also hurt me a lot in a way that like, bigger commercial houses and companies, when they're looking at me and my reel for director, they go, yeah, your stuff isn't quite up to par, for our levels. And I go, well, yeah, but because that thing costs $30,000, but it looks like it costs, 600 grand, and it's like,
I have 500 grand. I can make it look like $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, there's that weird thing is like, well, it's not quite good enough because it doesn't look big enough or polished enough like this. I was like, yeah, because it was a micro budget, and so and then it's hard to get in the doors for the bigger spots too when you're doing just a lot of the lower end spots. So yeah,
for sure. We just did two campaigns back to back at the end of last year, and it was the same agency, and they had 2 different clients, and they came to me. They RFP'd us separately for these 2 different projects, and like both of these budgets were just pretty low for what the client was asking for. And so I kind of hedged a little bit, and we treated on both and bid on both projects, assuming that we would be able to basically shoot them together. And we put the crew together, and I booked the crew on like, hey, this is one big job, but it's 3 different spots for 2 different clients. And I was transparent with the agency the entire time. I was like, hey, this is what we're doing. And in order to make this work for you, for both of these budgets, for this client, this is the way we got to do it. So I need you to help me. And they were great. And they were like, yep, no problem. Like, we can do that. Make sure it's a different location, make sure it's different talent, make sure but everything else can stay the same. And we did. And now obviously it kind of remains to be seen if we're going to get more work from that agency, but it's at least a working relationship where I'm making them aware of the size of their budget and how I'm actually making it work, instead of just kind of doing that in the dark and then making it look, quote unquote, too good. But that's back to those like relationships and those working relationships, and how honest should you be with the type of and the quality of work that you're doing,
Yeah. It comes down to strengths too, like your strengths as a people person, business owner and stuff like that. They're able to maintain those relationships and do it and figure out ways to do it. Yeah. I think that transparency in this world right now is the only option. Yeah. It's like, hey, in order to do this is what we got to do. That's great.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the Keep It Secure campaign here that you did for the VA. You did this with Mark Harper, who's going to be on the podcast next week. Gigline, the VA, Rudy Reyes is in it. You directed it. Like, how did that come to you? How did you get connected to Mark for that project, and like kind of walk us through the beginning stages there?
Yeah, so Mark and I have worked together for probably 15 years, 10 to 15 years at this point, on and off for certain things. And since he was at We Are the Mighty, and we've just done a lot of stuff together. And Mark and I have become, just like, I love him as a human, and he is one of the best business human people on the planet. And so he's just like so good. He at the EP role himself, and going out there and meeting the people and doing that thing. And so the campaign landed on Mark's desk, and it was the VA and the DoD said, "Hey, we want to do a new campaign. We don't know what that looks like. How can you guys help us with this?" And with that, they were like, they wanted Mark and Gigline to pitch multiple ideas and overall creative in order to see if we could win that job. And so one of the things that I do as well, is because I started the spec stuff, I started doing a lot of creative directing. So I do freelance creative directing as well. And so a lot of times I'll creative direct something, and then I will also direct the video aspects of the elements. And so
and for those, sorry to interrupt you, but for those listening, that's like coming up with the concept and the script and like kind of the overall like look and feel of a campaign before it goes to a director to put a treatment together to storyboard it and script it and say, this is how I'm going to shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Mark hit me up and he says, "Hey, are you willing to jump on board and be the creative director and put, these projects together and then so that we can pitch the VA and DoD on this?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's go." And so if I remember correctly, we put 5 ideas together, and 5 full campaigns. So it was like 4 to 6 weeks of work on ideating all these different ideas. And then we presented the group, and then they whittled down to 3. And then we went back, got in some notes, and then we brought back 3 very fleshed out ideas, and then made our real pitches. So the dragon spot was my Hail Mary, because I was like, my idea and my whole messaging was like, listen, we have seen the same messaging over and over and over for the VA and the DoD and suicide awareness and gun safety and all this stuff. And I think it's really important for me as a veteran, and knowing most of my friends are all military veteran, type of guys. And I was like, none of this stuff resonates with us because we're talked to like we're not humans, that we're less than, that we're victims, all of these things. And I was like, I think it's really important to flip this script and start talking to veterans like the warriors they are and humans they are. And so my whole pitch package was built around this dragon idea. And I knew that they might take other versions of this idea without the big swing, but this was the big swing. And it took a lot of convincing from Mark. I had to convince Mark to be able to even pitch this. And I had to convince, even we had to do back channel convincing before we even got to pitch. But the idea was essentially, we love those old 1990s Marine Corps commercials that when he went in and slayed a dragon, he slayed a monster, and we were like, that's awesome. It's like, why can't we do something like this now and make it really cool and talk about mental health and gun safety and doing it as a collective group of warriors? And so that's how the idea came about. And so we really spent a lot of time and I give so much credit to Mark because he's so good at basically taking something and taking these ideas and giving the notes to bring it from an 85% good to 100% good. Right. And as a team, me and Mark and the rest of the Gigline team, we really worked very hard on this creative, and then pitched in creative. pitched it, and I did from there. Once we pitched the thing, and then they selected it, which was like, absolute dream. I was like, this is so exciting because this is going to be huge, and this is going to be, something that I'm going to be so proud of, as a piece, not just, to be the creative director, but the director, and just generally the way that we are talking to the veterans now. And so we started, the pitch, and then I went into, once they selected that, I went into director mode and started doing my director, which is a treatment as a director, and then building the boards. And then we did, because there's so much special effects, we did full animatics, and then we did a whole process of notes, back and forth to make sure that we were all on the same team collectively and do that. But then I also produced and, actually ran as the producer and oversaw everything as well. And this is for the shoots itself.
So a few things to unpack there. I think, like, one, when you're working with the VA and the DoD, like, this is why representation is important, right? Because like you nailed it earlier, which is, I am your audience. My friends are your audience, and you are not currently speaking to us where we are, and you're not reaching us. So you've hired the right person, because I'm going to tell you what you're not doing well, and I'm going to present you with solutions, right? 5 of them, right? In this case. And then I'm also going to have the courage to take the swing for that Grand Slam version that I know damn well you should choose. I don't think you're going to, but I really hope you do. And lo and behold, they did, which is great. So like, there's that angle of it. And then there's the other
credit, by the way. I give so much credit to the VA and DoD for saying yes to that, because that is so outside their comfort zone and is so different from anything they've ever done before. That was really hard to get past a lot of layers on the back end. I know it was, but like, I do have to give credit where it's due. Like, they said yes to that, and it is really cool.
Yeah, good for them, and good for them, and good for you guys, right? And like, it is funny. We all in the community, we talk about the content in the community all of the time, right? And we're like, why would they do that? Why do they do it this way? Why aren't they doing it this way? I worked with 2 veteran organizations last year, and we ended up getting to push through, nothing at this scale, but we ended up getting to like push through some things that we felt were important to do, and we had to fight for some of our ideas and explain why. But because we had, my wife is a spouse and I am a veteran, and we're both creative directors, and then I'm EPing and she's directing, like, there's this I don't know what the word is, right? But it's like an accountability that like we can bring to it, and say, like, a credibility rather, that we can bring to it and say, like, no, this is why we think this. We're not just trying to get you to do something because it's edgy or cool, but this is why we think it works. And so that's when those relationships work really well. The one between you and Mark, where Mark is like, hey man, you got to convince me, because if I'm going to put myself on the line here to let you pitch this, like, you got to convince me, veteran to veteran, and then you as a team then, convince the DoD and the VA. And that's just like, that's creative tension at work, right? And that's valuable conflict. And I think that a lot of people stay away from conflict, especially now that we're like out of it for day-to-day like life and work. But if you lean into that conflict in a productive way with a solutions-oriented approach, instead of just being like, oh, you should do it this way, but you're never going to, right? Like that's that creative tension that is so valuable between a client and an agency and a production company, that like, when it's working, man, it's great.
Yeah. It's rare too. Like, it's hard to, getting a group of anyone to agree and move in the right direction. And that's kind of the biggest 2 jobs of you as a director and the EP, and then their collective, know, so
what about the other side of it, right? Like, obviously I've done similar things where you wear multiple hats and you wear them concurrently, right? So I do this first, and then I know I'm going to take that hat off and put this one on. And then I'm also going to have to put this other hat on. I tend to enjoy that because I'm already preparing for the next role, right? I'm already preparing for the next iteration of the creative. How is that for you, to creative direct something, to then direct it and then line produce it? Do you find that to be like a helpful sort of pipeline that you're going through, or is it do you need some time to like take one hat off and put the next one on?
No, I mean, for me, it's just kind of the way that I've done everything for the most part. Like, almost everything I direct, I produce I would say, 80% of the things, 85% of the things I direct. It's rare where I just get to walk on a set and be a director. It's at this point, like, it does happen. The last spot I did, that Disney spot for Country Music Awards. That was me just walking on as a director. It was great. But for this stuff like this specifically, it's way easier for me to wrap my brain out because I am so deep in everything. I am producing and directing and creative directing. So like I have all of the worlds basically here, and I'm able to allocate and move pieces and kind of like understand that this is not achievable at this budget level, and this we need this for VFX, and we need all of these things to kind of collectively do that. And so, yeah, I mean, I find I'm at my best kind of when I'm in will be able to oversee it with, a group of essentially, platoon leaders underneath me, or company commanders underneath me that I trust implicitly, and they're able to go do their thing that they need to do. And so, it's for me, like even my movie, I did it the same way. I know most directors, like big time directors, they're the same way. It's like Ridley Scott, he does all of these things, and Spielberg, and just kind of
produces, but like they're producing together, yeah.
And so it's like you have your partners that you're able to work with, but ultimately it's hard if you don't have a full understanding of the budget and the way producing works as a director. Like I just don't think you can do your job the way you should be able to. So
yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the director to producer segment of that makes a ton of sense for what you're describing, because in the old school way, it used to be like feasibility, right? You'd have an agency producer, and then you'd have the production company side producer, and they would argue about the feasibility of the budget and the what we got to save for post and what we need to do in camera and what we got to do on set and all these different things. And like that, there's just certain things you don't need agency producers for anymore, because a director who's also producing can work with the agency and the client, make that happen. Where I do think it gets interesting when you're the creative director and you're reporting then to a client, right? You're responsible for the creative that you concepted and developed, and you're also directing. Who gives the notes, right? Because typically on set, right, like the client would go to the creative director from the agency on set and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I would like to see. And the creative director would take that, digest it, bring it to you as the director and the producer and say like, hey, here's what the client is saying. In this case, it's you and then the client, right? And you've got Mark, obviously. So how do you find when you're creative directing and directing, managing that relationship with the client to make sure that their notes that they're giving are delivered on, but then also like digested properly, because they might not know exactly what note to give?
Yeah, so like it's really the way that I work when agencies and clients are involved in at this level. It is like I'm always doing something. I explained to the agency and the client, be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. Do you guys have thoughts or ideas right now before we get into it? Try to get stuff beforehand, then go do it. Come back. How you guys feel about it? We're good. We're going to move on. Right. And stuff like that. And so I'm very proactive and interactive in the space while we're doing it. I budget time to have that ability to go have those conversations. At the same time with this, I also had Mark, and Mark is, the perfect person to literally liaise with client and, and in our case, because we are the agency in this one, so liaise with the client. But we had two clients, right? We had two clients that we were talking to. We're talking to the VA and we're talking to DoD. And there are times where not everyone agrees with things, or they need someone and something else needs something. And Mark is just like a master at like, well, let's see how we can do this. And then he would come and deliver me, messaging, hey, we need to do this, or blah, 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 blah. And so, I just really appreciate, the relationship, the working relationship I have with Mark, and because he's just such a capable human, that is able to kind of navigate those tides.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with him next week, because when you're an EP, right, you're a little bit creative and then you're a lot of it logistics, but you need to be kind of both of those things. Then there's that third piece, right, which is the relationship and understanding, the politics, local level politics here, not the politics necessarily of the VA and the DoD, but although I'm sure that does come into play, but it's more of just like, how are the people and the stakeholders here interacting and getting all the things that they need while staying out of your way, but also giving you all the things that you need, and then being there to play defense for you kind of when needed, or when to just step away and just let you play offense, right? Like that's what I've done, my entire career and what I do now. So I'm excited to talk to him. How'd you guys land on talent for this? You got Rudy Reyes leads this spot, right?
Yeah. So early on, we talked about we talked with the clients, understanding kind of what they want to do. And, early on when we talk about, we wanted to be a little bit more muscular in the stories, right? Talk to the warriors like warriors. Like we're like, well, let's get real warriors that have done the things. And we both knew Rudy. And so we're like, Rudy would be really great for this. I think Mark actually brought Rudy early on. So we talked with Rudy and his team early and said, hey, we're going to develop some projects and some ideas kind of around you. Is this something you'd be, interested in kind of being involved in, stuff like that? So early on, we had him and wrapped his team in with creative and ideas so that they were aware of what's happening as we move forward.
Again, it's like that, those relationships, right? Like the relationships you have with somebody and then with his team, and you bring them on early and say, like, here's what we're doing. How can you contribute to this? Is this something you like? Like because there's nothing better than being able to pitch with talent attached. I mean, I've been there where you can't do that. I got caught in that a couple of years ago where we pitched something, we didn't have name talent attached to it, and then name talent got attached to it. We had to retrofit the creative, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the same for movies though too. It's like if you can have, if you can get and develop something around and with a big name talent and then go pitch it, you are leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else, right? And so it's kind of like similar in this world where, Rudy just so happens to be, popping off right now he's got 2 TV shows and he's got a bunch of stuff that's going on. And, he wasn't always like that. Like he was homeless and lived on a couch and had some really low lows. And he really has been able to pick himself up and like move past that. And now he's thriving. And so as a human, I love Rudy, and he's such a good person, like such to his core, that we just knew early that this would be perfect for him.
Yeah. How does it feel to, obviously you've done a lot in the veteran space and in the military space, right? In terms of storytelling for We Are the Mighty and some of these other organizations and clients and different things like that. But then you do stuff for Disney and the CMAs, and you're making a movie, and you do all these different things. Like, what does it mean to you to tell like this story for this campaign, for this reason, to be able to see this home run swing that you took kind of come to life? Like, what does that feel like?
Yeah. This is, top 3 of like the most proud I am of anything I've ever done. And I'm so excited of how it turned out, the way the team came together. Like, I mean, it also clearly won for the VA right now. I think it's the most viewed video of all time for the VA. All this stuff, we're closing in, I think, on 40 million collective views on just 3 videos. It's just like, it's everything that I want as a viewer for, messaging coming at me as a veteran. But to be able to do it with the team that we did it with, I'm so proud of it. So like, it's definitely for me, the best commercial thing / PSA, whatever it is, I've ever done. And I hope, I can live up to it or get other opportunities that are like this. But yeah, I couldn't be more proud of it, man. It's so, it was so awesome to be able to go through the whole process and then deliver on the thing that I had this little idea in the back of my head early, and then, it turns into this thing.
That's incredible. I'm so happy for you guys. I just even all the surface level stuff, the views and all that stuff is incredible in and of itself. But then to be able to have the feeling that you were describing earlier of, I don't like the way that you're talking to us. I don't think you're talking to us well. I have this idea. I know it's the one that you should choose. I don't think you're going to choose it, but I'm going to pitch it anyway because I need to. And then to have that chosen and then for you to deliver on it, like that just makes me really happy for you guys. Like that is it's a great feeling.
It really, really is, because it's so rare that it happens when you're like, this is the one, and that it's going to resonate with people. I mean, there's a dragon all over this spot, like, and we designed that dragon from nothing, literally, into this. And so like, you just know. And so I'm so happy they said yes, and the reaction that we were getting from people, from other veterans. I'm getting private messages or comments on this thing. They're like, yes, this is what we need. This is the way you need to talk to it, So yeah, that is, to me, is definitely the thing I'm most proud of.
It's awesome, man. Great for you guys. Super happy. So yeah, it's a great campaign. I remember when Mark posted it, I think you guys all kind of collabed on it. And so I saw it at the same time, and I'd heard about it, and I think I'd seen a rough cut kind of early. I'm like, man, this could be really cool. And then I saw the final spot. I'm like, that's great. Got to get you guys on to talk about it. Super stoked. What's next, man? Like, what, obviously talking about the Hollywood Grit stuff that you got going on with sales and all that, but like, what's next? Obviously it's like Q1 of 2026, which is crazy. Ebbs and flows of the industry and life and work. Like, what's on your plate? What are you looking forward to right now? What's next?
Dude, I got a lot of like really cool stuff happening. There's a lull in like money and jobs coming in, but that means, look, for me, that means like it's time to be hyper creative. And so I'm writing 3 movies right now. I'm writing like a Boston heist thriller. I'm from Boston, and so it's about loosely based on things that happened in my childhood, called Townies. I'm writing another crazy kind of movie that's kind of like Catch Me If You Can meets Wolf of Wall Street, about a true story about this guy who literally faked his way into all these different Fortune 500 jobs at the age of like 23 and making 500 grand a year, completely bogus resume, completely faking himself as a human. Really fascinating story. And then I'm writing a movie right now about Johnny Manziel, the quarterback from Texas A&M, about the Heisman Trophy and his kind of like meteoric rise, and then even more meteoric fall. So I'm writing that. So it's a lot of writing screenplays right now. That's kind of my world every day. And then on top of it, I'm a musician as well. And so I play a lot of music, and I just signed a record deal, which is wild.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. And so we just recorded our first album in Tennessee. And so we're mixing and mastering the songs right now. And then it's just one of those things that like there's these crazy doors that keep open on the music side. I never expected it. It was just something I like to do for fun. And now opportunities are presenting themselves in the music space. And so I hope, more things happen in that music space, and that kind of like collectively, ultimately I'm a storyteller, right? So whether it's, commercials or movies and music or whatever it is, I have to be, telling stories, and that's the thing that brings me joy and I love.
I love it, man. Good for you. That's exciting. Are you writing the Johnny Football one on spec?
Yeah. Writing on spec with another Army veteran, Rebecca Murga. She is one of the writers of Will Trent on ABC. And she has written movies for Spike Lee and Steven Soderbergh, and she is a boss. She is like just an absolutely awesome human.
She's been recommended to me to get on the podcast. So if you can put me in touch with her, that would be awesome, because I've heard
she's great. Such good energy, amazing. She's just an amazing human too, just like this sweet. I was really great friends with her, and so developing 2 of those movies with her, so the Catch Me If You Can one, and then the Johnny Manziel one. So we're writing on spec, but we're pretty sure that we're going to be able to sell it quickly.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I can't wait for that one. I'll tell you offline about a screenplay that I just started. Actually, this morning I got lightning strike hit, and I opened up a Google Doc and just like.
Those are the best.
Yeah, the best. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see where it goes. I think it's like marketable and sellable, which is the fun one. The fun kind of get where you're like, oh, I could actually I could make this. I could make a short proof of concept festival that, build a deck around it. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Kyle Houseman Stokes, one of my other buddies. I don't know if you know Kyle. Do you know Kyle Houseman Stokes?
We've emailed a bit. I was trying to get him on for my dead friend Zoe, but I think we got connected too late in the press cycle, and he got busy. But we've been emailing back and forth.
Yeah, he did that. So that's his journey. He like wrote a movie, and then he's like, this is the movie I want to do. And then he, wrote a short for the movie, filmed the short, went to festivals, got producers, got the whole thing moving, and then ended up doing that and then winning South by. South by Southwest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely it's a viable option. For me, the short stuff, like it's not worth the time, energy, and money at this point, right? So like to me, it's like if you can make a short for whatever the cost of the short is, then you could probably make the movie for just a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny. That's where I came up when I left film school and before I got into advertising. Like that's where I wrote and directed a bunch of shorts, and like that's what I did in LA when I first got there. I did two out, and then I did three in New York. Well, I didn't write and direct. My wife wrote and directed. I edited and acted in one of those. But like, so I've done, I don't know, like half a dozen shorts that have done well, like in terms of festival circuit, in terms of like views on Film Shortage or some of these online distribution platforms. But yeah, that's where it was for me, where I was like, well, I got to do this and make a living, right? And fill into branded content and brand entertainment and commercials. And now I'm kind of back to that. Like I'm always writing, I'm always tinkering. And then, so when this idea hit me today, I'm like, all right, let me at least bang out a one-pager scriptment, right? James Cameron style, to be like, here's like what the movie is. And then if I read that and I'm like, okay, I can write that screenplay. The question then does become, to your point, it's like, well, do I just scrounge the dollars together and the crew together to make the whole thing? Because it's one of those, it's a two-hander, one location, like,
then yes, there's no other option than to do that. There's no, literally, it's a waste of time and energy, because here's the thing. Is a short does nothing for you in this world anymore. It is so rare that what happened to Kyle happens, but it happened in a way for him because he got huge nonprofits involved. He'd made a big old spectacle. He did like this whole thing. So if you're going to do that and spend the money and do it like that way, sure. Right. However, knowing what I know now and wishing what I had done prior. So like I did a bunch of shorts. One short, I think I spent $50,000 on, like I would do commercials and I'd save money and I'd be like, I'm going to do this short, and this short's going to be the one that sends me into the stratosphere. If I would have just taken that $50,000 and then made the movie, we're talking a whole different situation.
Yeah.
And so what's her name? This is what she did. She did Selma.
Ava DuVernay.
Ava, yeah. So Ava did. It's funny because I do a lot of stuff with Oprah, and I have done a lot for over the past years. And so I met Ava before she was Ava, and she had just done Selma, and I was like just literally talking to her. Me and her chatting. I was like, how the hell did you do this? How are you here? Right? And she told me exactly. She's like, I was in PR and hating my life, and took my savings and took $75,000 or $30,000. I can't remember what's what. And I think it was 75. And she's like, took 75,000. I wrote a script, and then I made a movie for $75,000. And then it went out into the festivals and did the thing. And then that got me enough attention to be able to raise $150,000 and do my next movie, which got me attention to get me Selma.
Yeah.
And so, dude, if you're a two-hander and it's it's commercial and you can shoot it for what the cheapest amount possible, and you have the know-how and the producer and you're the director and you have all of that stuff handled, you can handle post and do all that stuff, like do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah. I know. We'll see. It is funny. It's like, it is tough to make a commercial for $50,000, but you can make an ultra low budget indie for $50,000. Which is just one of those wild things that I just never would have understood in film school.
Yeah, you got to think about it just like as a different thing. Is like you're going to employ someone for 2 weeks, 10 days, 15 days, whatever, to shoot that ultra low thing. And you'll be like, listen, do it for 15 days. I'll pay you $200 a day instead of $600 a day or $800 a day or whatever like this. And we're going to pay you. It's going to be a movie, whatever that looks like. And then you just minimize your crew, and then get your scope with locations and get your everything the other way. If I could go back and do it again, that is exactly what I do. I make a movie for $10,000. I make a movie for $30,000. I make a movie for whatever until I figure it out. And then the other thing I learned and will learn to do and will always do next time is always take way more time on the script. You know, like take way more time on the script than you think you need. You need 100 visions versus 3, you know, or whatever it is, just to take that time because, you know, if it's your first movie, that's always going to be your first movie. And so make sure that script is fucking awesome.
Yeah. The good news is I love writing, and that's what I am trained to do. I got a screenwriting degree, and I've written features, and I've obviously written a bunch of shorts, and I've now written a bunch of commercials and treatments and branded entertainment and content and docs and like all that stuff. I love the process of writing. So actually what got me excited, I know I said earlier, it's like, oh, it's marketable and sellable. And it is, but what got me excited this morning was, oh, I can actually spend the rest of 2026 writing this screenplay and actually enjoying that process and having something at the end of it that I love doing and will love having, and then can just be like, yeah, let's just fuck it. Let's just go make it, you know?
Yeah.
Here too. Like, that's the thing is like, you know, moving to a place like, you know, I know you're in LA, but it's like moving to a place in Columbus, and now having produced a bunch of stuff here locally, I'm like, oh, I've got DPs, I've got gaffers, I've got PA, I've got like everybody here that we could possibly need to go put a skeleton crew together to like actually make something. And here in Ohio, it's great. There's actually a lot of people work on TV and features here because of Cleveland, because of Cincinnati, because
and
of
a 30% tax rebate.
Yeah, and all that stuff. So, so yeah, it's great. Yeah, I met a line producer here, like right when we first moved here, and he did 2 features, I think in the last 3 years, like all here in Columbus,
Cool.
Which is super cool. It's super great. It's like one of the reasons we moved home was to help kind of bring this talent and these opportunities to these other places that you know, we spent time on the coasts and it was great, and you know, cut our teeth there and like all that. But then being here in the Midwest, we're like, yeah, let's do it here, you know? So
that's cool, man.
All right, man. I'll be respectful of your time. Always appreciate our conversations. Looking forward to the next one, and hopefully working together this year. Where can folks find you on social, online? Where can they find your work? Where can they find the campaign?
Yeah, you can find my stuff on my website at ryancurtis.us, like America, and social, Instagram, Ryan32Curtis. You can find, you know, the dragon spots on YouTube. Just search VA Dragon and they'll come up. There's it's a 60-second, a 30-second, and 15-second. I think the 15-second has something like 30 million views. So nice. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Well.
Good stuff. Well, as you know, I end each episode with an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. But Ryan, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
Yeah, you know, for me, the thing is like the leaning into the fact that we have such a rich community of creators and storytellers, and that's still not something that people kind of realize. And so that's one of the things that I really want to kind of work towards over the next couple of years, is really kind of like lifting up, you know, the group of creators and storytellers and, you know, whatever that looks like. And so, you know, I'm trying to do it for myself. I'm trying to do it for others. And so like anything I can do kind of help. And, you know, anyways, is what I'm looking forward to do as my little, you know, piece to the world.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. There's a bunch of great people in our community who have a lot to offer. And a lot of people are looking for like ways to do it. And just all it takes is building those relationships and connecting people to do it together.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. Appreciate you, man. We'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.